Hi, welcome to Reason with Rima. On this channel, we deal with everything inspirational, motivational, and often quite emotional. And today we're dealing with the topic of how to set boundaries, but not for other people, setting boundaries for yourself. Let's get into this. So often, my clients will say to me that people think they're quite unapproachable. But when they get to know them, they see that they're kind and that they're the most loving and warm person that you could ever hope to meet. So I usually ask them, well, is this the impression that you want to set, that you're unapproachable? And they usually say yes, because in the past people have taken advantage of their kindness and of their softness and of their vulnerable nature. So for this reason, they don't smile, they don't make themselves look approachable, they don't get eye contact, they don't join in activities, and they pretty much try to keep themselves to themselves. So it takes a long time for people to get to know them. But I say, well, if you're in a business, is this a reputation that you want of somebody who's unapproachable, or do you want a reputation of somebody who is charming, likable, nice, and friendly? Because not everybody's going to wait to get to know you deeply before they make an assessment of your character. And if introduce you to their friend, which could be a new partner that you might end up having, getting into a relationship with somebody, or getting into a work situation, or being even offered opportunities just because you have a charming nature. But if you always set a boundaries by appearing unapproachable to others, then you're actually setting up yourself a failure in many ways. So already, if you're making yourself unapproachable, you've already almost set in your mind that the other person is toxic. The other person is going to be coming with a problem. You see the other person as an enemy. And in a way, by making yourself unfriendly, not smiling, doing the obvious things to draw people closer to you, you've actually set up a boundary. And the boundary is to keep them out. But the truth of setting boundaries is not to set them on other people, but to really set them on yourself. Now, like I said, most people don't want to appear too open and too willing because they're scared of being taken advantage of. But often, if you're being taken advantage of in any way, it's because you usually haven't set boundaries on yourself. There is no need to set boundaries on smiling. Smiling is a beautiful gift, and it's a cheap gift that you can give to anybody. Having eye contact, being sociable, being pleasant is not something that you want to set boundaries on. As I said, this will definitely work against you. But surely, if your kindness has been taken advantage of, your good and soft nature is what people abuse, then this brings back the question to you. It is not about them. First, let me say that there are no toxic people in this world. The world is full of people with good and bad nature. We all have good and bad nature. But what we tend to do when we want to make ourselves the victim, when we want to make it seem that the world is against us, we label others' behavior, their natural human behavior, as toxic or as haters. But the truth is, not everybody has to like you. Not everybody has to appreciate you. Yes, somebody can be competitive against you. Yes, they will talk about you. They have a right to do so. This should not be your problem. And trying to set up boundaries against these people, and usually the first boundary we set up is in our mind, by thinking of them as toxic, by thinking of them as hateful, by thinking of them as a problem. But it's usually really us who are the real center of that problem. Why? Because we haven't set boundaries on ourselves. For example, if you overeat, have you set boundaries on your eating? If you drink until you're drunk, have you set your boundaries? If you talk too much or just do anything, which is going to be human nature, but if you are showing your weaknesses, how much boundaries have you set up on yourself? Now, when it comes to dealing with others and their boundaries, what we tend to do is we give too much. We try too hard. We try to be over nice, try to be friendly, give out gifts to people to express our kindness, try to build friendships and put too much effort into building friendships. And when the people don't return the same effort, the same kindness, the same friendliness, the same loyalty to us that we express freely and easily, then we start to call them toxic, haters, and then we want to set boundaries against them. Now, a quick example for me is with a girlfriend of mine who used to be overkind, over good. You know, when my house needed decorating, I moved into a brand new house, a big house in England, Birmingham. When I moved in there, she decorated the whole place. I fell asleep. I barely had any energy or interest in doing it, but she was going out gung ho. Because she knows that I'm interested in all philosophical teachings, she would give me tapes and tapes. I asked her to do me a couple of tapes of CDs at the time of philosophical Abraham Hicks. She ended up giving me 200 tapes of all the different philosophical speakers. So then when I couldn't pay that back, then obviously she started to resent, because at the level that she's giving, I can't match, and I've got no intention of matching her. So she's given me her goodness, she's given me her greatness before I've even asked for it. And that actually made me feel uncomfortable, suffocated, stifling. And in the end, I had to just cut off our friendship altogether. And I'm sure she labeled me as toxic, as a hater, as bad-minded, and all those type of things. But all it was is that I hadn't earned the kindness she'd given me. I hadn't earned the level of friendship that she was expressing. But because she wanted it back, she was giving it to me that hard. And I was never able to give it back to her in equal portions. And so this made me feel uncomfortable, nervous around her. And in the end, I just had to cut the friendship. So before we can even set boundaries on others, we have to set boundaries on ourselves. How much are we giving? How much are we opening up ourselves? How much are we desperate for that love for that man, that we give him everything, we show him our best, we say all the right things. And then when he's kind of overwhelmed by your love and expression because he knows he hasn't earned it, and when he cuts you off or doesn't want to have anything to do with you, then you label him as toxic. When he sleeps with you for the one night and doesn't return the call the next day because he sees you're giving up your goods too quickly, then you want to say that he has used you and he's abused you. But no, you just haven't set boundaries on yourself, not on the other person. You haven't set boundaries on your goodness. You haven't set boundaries on your behavior. When you lack integrity, which is really what's happening, when we don't set boundaries on ourselves, we lack integrity. A person of integrity will always have discipline. They will decide in advance how much they're going to share, how much they're going to give. And all that they share and give, they're not looking or expecting anything back in return. So they give within moderation. But those of us who don't have any boundaries on giving, because we think when we give plenty, we will get plenty, then we certainly set ourselves up for rapid disappointment. The truth of it is that we cannot set boundaries on others. We can't control what others say, think, or feel about us. What we can do is set boundaries on ourselves. And this is where integrity really comes in. Now, if you are a person of integrity, you don't need to tell anybody, don't say this to me, don't do this to me, don't act this way towards me. You don't need to say that, because they can already see that the disciplined way that you move, the way that you keep your treasures to yourself. That doesn't stop you from smiling, being friendly, being open, and being relaxed. It doesn't stop that. But it certainly means that you have a disciplined way that others know that if they step over that mark, they will automatically be getting into trouble. Why a person of integrity will never have their boundaries crossed is because they say what they mean and they mean what they say. They only give as much as they want to give without expecting anything in return. And they express to the rest of the world, I don't need you. I enjoy having you. And if you conduct yourself in right manner, then you can come closer to me and come closer into my world. But I don't need you. Usually people who have their so-called boundaries overstepped is because they haven't set those boundaries. They are the ones that are in need. They are hungry for love. They are hungry for affection. They are hungry to stand out and be respected in the workplace. They are the ones that are hungry to have friends. And when you are hungry for these things, you drop all your boundaries, which the only real boundary that you are dropping is your own integrity. You overstep them with your eating habits. You overstep them by saying you're going to do something and then you don't do it. You overstep them by not honoring your commitment and your word. That's how you overstep your boundaries. When you've made yourself available, when you've given up too much to that man or to that marriage or to even your child, whoever it is, when you are giving too much, you will naturally expect too much. And when you expect too much, you will always be disappointed. This is a world of over 7 billion people. We all have competitive natures in us. We all have negativity. We all express bad things, but this is human nature. Now, if you cannot get to grips with human nature, you will always be crying because the world is always going to be challenging you and challenging your emotions. And if your idea of handling the world is to set rules against them, and to keep them out and to make yourself seem unapproachable, then you're in for a miserable life. So my advice to you is let's focus on integrity. Let's focus on being a person of honor and consistency, that others can see those boundaries without us even have to express them. And when we are truly kind to ourselves, more than we are to others, there's no room for others to take advantage of us. But if you make yourself into a doormat, then you can expect people to walk over you. So set boundaries on yourself, not on others. Take control of yourself, your behavior, and moreover, take control of the good side of your behavior and the good side of your nature where it is giving, because that is the area that when you feel it's abused, that is when you feel exploited and offended. So comment below if you know somebody who is overkind, over generous, over giving, and how does that person make you feel? Or have you given up your goods too quickly to a man, to be too generous to another friend, or try too hard at work to impress people and then it's backfired on you? Give me a comment below if any of these circumstances have hit you.